Welcome to Empowering Chats with Susan Burrell. This is where we have deep, intimate conversations about self-empowerment and future existence. I am an intuitive healer and a light leader who has been called to activate other light leaders. So I'm curious, are you one of them? So by listening, lean in and see if you are ready to be that eternal potential you've been called to be. Using your bravery, your talent, your tenacity, can you be innovative and adventurous in order to activate your light and lead from that place? This is where we learn how to love ourselves from the inside out and love the whole world over and over again. Enjoy the show. So you guys, I have chills. Oh my God, I hit record and now I have chills, and I know it's because of this topic, and I know it's because of this lovely woman that you're going to meet. I want to welcome Margaret Ann Lembo. Margaret Ann, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me and having me with you.
Wow. Wow. It's just,
There's an alignment here for sure.
yeah, just pulsing. I love it. So you guys, Margaret Ann is an author of several, books and oracle cards, correct?
That's true.
That's true. And she's got her fingers in a bunch of other things, which we'll probably talk about later. But she's written, her latest book is The Essential Guide to Archangels and Saints.
And I love the cover. Don't you love it?
I love your cover. It's beautiful. You know, and it reminds me of my husband and I travel to Europe often, and France, you know, and walking into some of the cathedrals, and it reminds me of being like in Notre Dame or Chartres, or I haven't been to Notre Dame since it's been rebuilt, but
Oh, me either.
it reminds me of that kind of iconology that and these angels to me are not a specific, it's an energy I get from this photo. So
And that's, I feel the same way about angels generally too, that they're energy, just energy.
okay, I agree with you. So but I want to find out why, how you got him, how you not got involved, but
How you could say that.
how did you start doing this, investigating archangels, angels in general, and then we'll get into the saints.
So I was born and raised Catholic.
Okay. Well, there you have it.
So I could stop there, but I'll tell you more. And I was also raised not only Roman Catholic, but I was raised with a metaphysical flair, although I didn't know that's what it was back then, because my mother specifically learned about ESP, learned about, working with plants and communicating with plants. And it was much more beyond the norm. And even astrology was part of our conversations. Not, like, I'm not an astrologer. I'm a pretty good amateur astrologer, but, I wouldn't call myself an astrologer per chance. But the point is that is how it all started. And then in the early 90s, I started offering angel talks when there wasn't much in the way of books even.
Right.
Back then. There was only a few. And so I spoke at Barnes and Nobles here in the Palm Beach County area, and then started doing those talks, also offering them at my own store, and just started like that. And then it just kept evolving from that, and, created a deck and book, and, kept evolving.
You were doing this before there was the actual little angel card deck, right?
My talks were in the early 1990s. Somebody recognized me as someone that would do well and speaking in front of large groups. And I remember the one was in Palm Beach Gardens. There were like over 200 people there, which is not a normal bookstore event, It kind of shocked me initially, but I embraced it because I do like the light shining on me. It's, a Leo moon.
Well, so Margaret Ann, my question then is, were you instructed or guided by your angels to say, lady, go do this because we need you to be our vehicle, or any of that?
Probably it wasn't that blatant though. You
Oh,
know what I mean? It wasn't like, Margaret Ann, you better wake up and go to that computer and tell your publisher you want to do this. Um, but I guess because I do hear more than anything else, I do sometimes wake up with the title. That is, I have done that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
right away send it to publishers that I publish me and I ask, would you be interested in this? And usually it's a yes, I must say. So I guess the answer still is yes.
Yes.
I
So
went a long way around.
it's okay. Um, so was it your Roman Catholic background that led you into investigating angels? Because your book, and it starts with the essential guide, and you guys, it is essential. It could be a one-stop shop kind of place. Um, because okay, I'm just going to talk about you right now, Margaret Ann.
Okay,
So, because
I'll let you talk.
okay, I'll talk. Um, because she also, not only is she, I'm talking about you. Not only has she talks about the angels, and has done research on the various names, if some of them have had multiple names or incarnations, or are also working as an ascended master kind of position, if you will. But then she also has um, colors that you can work when you're working with specific archangels, crystals that you can carry or hold or focus on. Uh, uh, you talk about the chakras. There's the zodiac signs, which ones work best. Then the thing I like best. Okay, I want to talk about petition in just a minute because I wasn't raised in any kind of religion, but Margaret Ann also has affirmations at the end of each archangel chapter, I guess, if you will. And I got to tell you, Margaret Ann, I wrote two of them down in my journal because it was like smack dab right in the middle. I was like, okay, I've got to focus on these. They're really wonderful. And I'm a word person, so having words to reread or look at is really helpful. So did you do a lot of research on these archangels? Because it just seems like you have a plethora of information.
I did. I had to. There's no way I knew all that. I knew a lot about a lot of angels, but not to the magnitude that I've written. Absolutely. So, but the part about after I did the research about the archangels and the saints, I also, once I got that completed, then it was just what's already inherent because of all the years of writing other books, like Chakra Awakening and the Crystal Book and all the different books. Then it made sense to me. Okay, so this resonates with this color. These are the gemstones that can help amplify the connection. I'm an aromatherapist. That's like who I am, in addition to being an author and an owner of a store. And so it just made sense. Like, these are the matching vibrations. This is how everything comes together. And I feel like that helps people understand better, including myself. I learned as I researched.
Yeah.
That adding those elements of things that I knew really helped to me.
Yeah. Now, see, I know some of the angels or archangels as rays of light. And over the last year, well, I've been working. Okay. I was not brought up in any kind of organized religion. So, how do I say this without, hmm. So so like, I never read the Bible.
Mhm.
I've
Big
read
difference,
parts
but
of it, and I just kind of went, oh yeah, 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 yeah. So for me, but when angels started to come in about 5 years ago, I took a pause, if you will, on my business, and because I realized I really needed to do some deep inner investigation, soul work on what was working and what wasn't working in my life. And so daily I would journal and read something contemplative to kind of get my juices flowing. But I would journal by asking questions, like um wisdom of my heart, I'm listening, and just write down whatever I heard. But all of a sudden, these angels came in. I started working with elementals too, had never done that. And then angels started coming in, and I'm like, oh, okay. So,
And were they archangels or were they like, because I also wrote a book on everyday angels. So it was like
no,
these and archangels.
there's, there's, well, it's Michael,
Yeah.
Raphael, Gabriel, Ariel,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's Haniel, which might be an everyday angel.
No, that's an archangel. Yeah.
Okay, and so I didn't know, like
Mhm.
I didn't know at the time when they started kind of surrounding me, and then I called a group, and there was a Merkaba,
Merkaba, you say it whatever way.
crystal,
Which is a Metatron thing. That's
yeah,
Metatron.
and I didn't know Metatron. But this crystal energy would come in or come around me, and then the angels would come in, and then my spirit guides are like, wait, we want in on this too, and then I'm working with elementals, and the wind's going. And I mean, I was so woo, Margaret Ann. But that's when I really was becoming a little clearer on how phenomenal it is to work with archangels, especially because they're so focused and lovingly intended to be here to assist us when we wake up, when we are consciously aware. And I had a preconceived opinion uh, that, people talk to angels because they just didn't want to do the inner work themselves.
Okay.
So, yet I've had
You see it differently, right?
right because because of doing my own inner work, then I was more receptive to this higher frequency
Mm-hmm.
of energy, because you said earlier the angels are energy,
They
uh,
are.
that could assist not only
Mhm.
but others. So you want to tell me who your favorite archangels are? Can we do favoritism with archangels?
I think we can. I think we can. So, like most, I would say Michael is always a favorite, and I call him Michael. I like to make his L sound because, except for Sandalphon and Metatron, they all have EL at the end of their name because they're part of the Elohim. And that's so it's Michael. So I think, and Raphael, I mean, who doesn't want an angel of healing, an angel unawares, a traveling companion? That's profound. Lately, Barakael, because I researched who he was, then I shouldn't say he, who they were.
Right.
Because they have no gender. They're genderless. They're androgynous. Barakael is an archangel all about blessings and home blessings, blessings in your life. In fact, my next aromatherapy blend is going to be Blessings from Heaven, and it's based on the entry of Archangel Barakael in the book. I just so connected with that particular archangel.
That's amazing. I have a friend who's moving, and I'm gonna read that and send it to her.
Oh, good. I love to hear that. Good.
Blessings. Well, we certainly are needing blessings, or we need to be aware of our blessings and other people's blessings in this day and age, don't you think?
I think so. And I think that's like a gratitude practice for one, always. And also being comfortable with, like you mentioned before, saying a petition. I use the word petition instead of praying so that I would hopefully encourage more people to talk, because we have to ask for the help from the angelic realm in general. It has to be a request because we have free will here on the planet and they can't interfere unless we want their help. But boy, if you ask for their help, I would say, unless it's something that's not yet or not now, they're there and you can get the guidance you need, and things evolve easily.
So a petition is a request, because I always see it as people, oh, you see how judgmental I am, and I'm working on judgment, Margaret.
Yeah.
I see it as people just begging, petition to me is like begging, please, please, please. Whereas now there are people that are going, please, 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 because holy moly, if you're in a situation They need to go, please, please, please. Yes. But I just kind of always saw it as something that was kind of,
I couldn't think of another word for it. Can you think of a better one? I could.
well, I like request,
Requests. Yeah.
requesting their assistance.
hmm So that works. But in a lot of ways, like you said, we are not necessarily begging, but I even start each one with, "Oh, Archangel Michael, help me, blah, blah, blah." You know what I mean? It's like I do make it like a dramatic. At least I think it's dramatic. I meant it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so often for our soul's evolution, we do need to open our heart, our mind, our consciousness to be willing to receive that kind of vibration where it's sort of like, hey, when you got some time, come on over here. You know? No, it's more like, I really, really need some help now.
And right now.
Please. It's always a
Yeah.
thank you at the end of every single one of those is a thank you as well.
Now it's interesting because Margaret Ann, I don't know who this person is. There's she's a spiritual teacher using angels or working with angels, but she has said that and I could have gotten this wrong. Don't quote me, anybody. Don't go out and say Susan said this. But that there could be a command component to it. Like, I command you to come now. That there's a power exchange or something. I don't know.
It's not my way of approaching an angel to command, but that doesn't mean that maybe it's necessary in certain situations. But I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I'm just more like, hey, could you help me, please? You know,
Right. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah. So, then let's move to saints, Margaret Ann. Again, you've got, are these all the saints in this book?
not even close. It was hard to discern which should go in this particular book. I mean, so many. And so I grew up with the books as it was normal. In fact, there might be one right here on the side that, Book of Angels, where it's all about each one of the angels. And I meant to say saints. Very, very common to know about the saints, especially because I was raised in Catholicism. So that was a very common thing for me in my life. So, but I didn't know the history of all of them, and definitely not to the degree of what I'd written in the book, which I found so interesting. I loved it so much. It was so hard to write. I felt like, back to that question of like, did the angels tell you need to do this? You know what? Yeah. Because when I finished it, when it came out, when it was published, when I saw that cover, I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I became an author. Really? Why?
Yeah. 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 To communicate this to a broader spectrum than Roman Catholics who
Exactly.
read it.
And I start the book saying something along the effects of, this is a metaphysical approach. I wanted people beyond the ordinary. It's more for the everyday, our metaphysical people.
Right. So it's interesting because, and now I can't find it, but I opened up immediately to the young woman uh who and now I can't find her.
Well, tell me, and maybe I'll know who she is.
The young girl who was at it's not Lourdes, it's the other one.
Fatima?
Oh, no, it wasn't Fatima. Anyway, but it was interesting because then you have the whole story. I just found Joan of Arc, who's one of my favorites for some of my favorite ladies. Yeah. But then you do the same thing in essence with the saints that you did with the archangels, which I enjoy too, because okay, so when you're working with a saint, is it different than working with the archangels?
Oh, well, yeah, I think so. To me, it feels different because they were humans. The only two that were ever humans, this I think is super interesting that I didn't realize. Archangels have never been, angels in general have never been incarnated on the planet, except for Metatron and Sandalphon. Metatron was Enoch, and Sandalphon, his twin brother,
Wow.
was Isaiah.
Wow.
Do I remember? Because it's new to me. I didn't know that.
Right.
Notice they both end with an ON at the end. All the rest are ELs at the end. Now, with saints, all of them have been human. They had very human emotions. Wow, the mystical visions they've had. My goodness. I think that if that happened today, they would be in an insane asylum. Somebody would put them away.
Oh, somebody would lock them up. I remember yeah, that they would. I remember I went to Assisi, and we were my little group. We're all metaphysical spiritual ministers, if you will. And we were learning about Saint Francis. And when they were talking about how he began his ministry, if you will, and he just like gave all his things away, gave all his clothes away. And this was like in the 10th century.
And he was very wealthy.
He was very wealthy. He kept giving his stuff away. And I think his family probably was alarmed. You know, in this day and age, they would have locked him up for being schizophrenic or something, you know.
Or like Baker Act.
Yeah.
He would have been Baker acted. I was going to look up when he was alive. I can't remember that. But I loved going to Assisi and really felt very, I don't know, familiar. And being in his church felt familiar.
Yes. Oh, did you go into the chapel? The small chapel inside the cathedral?
1181 to 1226.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I mean, I've been to Assisi twice, and one of the times is so cool. They were having a medieval festival, so everybody was dressed in medieval costume, including the horses.
Wow.
Rated like with those, you know, I don't even know what they call that, but they matched the person, the knight or whoever was on top. They were dressed gorgeous.
Wow, how fun.
It's like stepping back in time.
I remember when I went, it was right before Easter, which is, you know, of course, in Italy because it's a Catholic country, big deal. And our driver said he needed to go to the cathedral. Is it okay if he stopped there on the way to taking us to our we stayed at a monastery in Assisi. And so we all said, yeah, sure, let's go in and see. And there was his St. Francis's chapel where he would come off of the mountain and meditate and minister to people and animals. And so I went in to meditate, and I left. When I walked out of there, I was completely changed.
Wow.
Fundamentally changed. And then we went up to the grotto where he lived.
I don't remember doing that.
Oh my God, if you go back again, because that was, and it's a tourist thing, you know, it's just people just trudging through going, St. Francis lived here. Okay, now what are we doing next? And I walked in, and all of a sudden I was, because I'd already been tuned up down in the chapel. Yeah. I walked in, and my entire skin, I was radiating and vibrating, and there was this a curve in the rock where the people that work there said, oh, well, that's where he would sit to meditate. And I said, can I sit there? And they said, sure. And I sat down, and again, Margaret Ann, I was like, oh my goodness. And I went out afterwards outside. I had to walk in the olive grove or whatever those trees were right outside, because it had just opened so much that I could like let go of grief.
Blessing.
Sobbing, walking around. It was, yeah. My companions are like, are you okay? Can we, are you ready to go? And I'm like, you know, that was just, it was an amazing experience. And so then my awareness of St. Francis is a whole different level now, having experienced it.
And his prayer, which I keep literally right over here in calligraphy that I wrote a long time ago, is so profound. I mean, it is words to live by as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
I'm pretty sure it was St. Francis's church, the main one, like probably the cathedral. Do you remember? I remember seeing that they had a lot of murals on the walls, and they told us that the reason that there were all these paintings, which were old, was because people couldn't read. So that's the way they taught
Yeah.
Did you remember that?
I don't remember them saying that, but I've been in so many different cathedrals in Europe that yes, that's how they were able to understand what would. Well, that's also probably why they have the 12 stations of the cross everywhere,
Yes,
and
true.
so that people could understand the journey.
And you know what else? The tarot, which I'm not into reading tarot because people think it's fortune telling, but that is about the soul's evolutionary journey too. Like when you go through all the major arcana and then through the other, that's all about understanding the journey, starting with stepping off the cliff, the fool's journey.
Wow. Wow, Margaret Ann, that is interesting. So I did open to Saint Christopher.
Uh,
Read what you wrote about that, and that his name is Christ bearer because he had to carry children. He was very tall, and he decided to be of service and carry people across a river, and so he was the light, carrying the light of Christ or something.
isn't that beautiful?
I just thought it was amazing. I remember growing up, and we had some very close friends who were Catholic. And the big deal was when you graduated from high school, you got a Christopher's medal, for protection. I have chills all over me
Oh,
for protection, and if you were lost, Saint Christopher would carry you
yep.
or something. That's what my friend's mom told me when she goes,
That's the saint for travelers for sure.
yeah.
But
Okay.
I didn't realize that he was in some ways considered like almost like a giant, maybe in relation to the size of the people,
Right.
but big, tall enough that he could walk the river and have people almost on his shoulder. And that's how he's often portrayed in iconic artwork, where he's like carrying Christ. I don't know if it's quite on his shoulder, but up high like that because he's walking them across the river.
Well, now I got to pay attention to that whenever I see about St. Christopher, huh?
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's very cool.
I loved learning about all this. Some of it I knew, but that was I didn't realize that he was super tall, and that's what made him along the lines of being able to take people across the river.
Yeah, yeah,
He also has to be quite strong too, because it could be currents.
right. So, Margaret Ann, do you have a suggestion of how best to utilize your book?
So I love what I call magic book, which is what you've been doing. I call it magic book when you just say, okay, it could be a specific question or what's today's message for my spirit, for my soul, for my life. And so what did I open to? Archangel Burrell, the guardian of animals and pets. And then I would read it all
Yeah.
and then see how it relates to my life, which I have a lot of animals in my life, so that makes sense. And potentially petition or ask, pray, and always like to say the affirmations. When I was really young, I was so lucky. In addition to being like with my mom being metaphysically oriented, my father's best friend taught me about Edgar Casey and the
Oh,
Association
wow.
of Enlightenment. I was maybe 6, 8, 10, something like really young.
Mhm.
So that's pretty profound. Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet, and that was it, but also the magic of believing. And there's a literal book called The Magic of Believing by
My
Paul.
grandfather had that book.
Did he?
Yep.
I love that. And so that aspect of I grew up with using positive affirmations my whole entire life. Therefore, I have to share it. If I know it, why not share it with somebody
Right.
else, right?
Right. Margaret Ann, I knew you were going to say that because that's why I asked you the question. Because that's what I do is I just open the book, whatever it is that I need to know.
Mhm.
And let's see, who did I open up to right now? Uh-oh.
Why isn't it? Uh-oh.
Raphael, Archangel Raphael.
Well, didn't you want to get some healing vibes?
Well, I had already read it this morning, but I read so many of them. And yes, and I wanted healing and then there's the affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. You also have a segment of divine guidance. So, like under Raphael, it says, open your heart to give and receive assistance regarding health improvement. Be present when caring for others with their health related needs. Remember the importance of self care. It is time to align your mind to find methods to regenerate, rejuvenate your health on all levels. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So
I love doing a divine guidance because I feel like that's the message. They said, turn the book into a deck. That would be on one side of the card, and then maybe the archangel on the other, and a little, some points about that archangel.
So this is
Like
the divine.
oracle.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It's like an oracle.
Yes. So is that what happened when you were writing this book? You would focus on the archangel, and then the guidance would come through?
Well, I started doing the divine guidance with Essential Guide to Crystals, Minerals, and Stones. And then I did it in the essential, like I kept doing it. I did it in my aromatherapy book. I did it for each and every one. So yes, the answer is yes, but I had already been doing that divine guidance for a while so that it's like people can get a message. They can get more than just, oh, this is about this particular being. What about a message? What is something that I can focus on to help me improve my life?
I love that you put that in there, because see, those are the divine guidance and the affirmations are going to be my go-to when I open up the book, because then that gives me, because I'm such a mental person, I guess, but that gives me something to focus on. So now I have one last question. You talk about everyday angel. So what's the difference between an archangel and an everyday angel?
That's going to be the last question, really.
Well, I don't know, but
I'm teasing you. I just feel like I can. This is a whole book about it.
She has a book called The Everyday Essential Guide to Everyday Angels. I love it.
Essential Guide to Everyday Angels. So I started with my decks that I wrote about about the angels. But this book, The Essential Guide to Everyday Angels, or whether you get a book or not, the everyday angels are just ordinary things. The angel of romance, the angel of happy home, the angel of health and well-being, the angel of good fortune. So it's just like positive things. Let's do a magic book. I'll just open, look at you, the angel of fun and play. So that might be telling me it's time to chill a little bit. What would make me happy today? What activity makes me feel like I'm having fun? When was the last time I felt playful? So I like to start with a contemplative question a lot of times. And
Yes, which is important, I think.
I think it is. And then hopefully people pause and answer those for themselves. And then I talk about more about that. And it's similar in setup as the Essential Guide to Archangels and Saints, where there's chakras and colors and aromatherapy and the divine guidance, etc.
So I just, because I'm basically new to angels over the last few years, I recently surrendered. I recently surrendered and asked, who is my guardian angel and what is your name? And finally met my guardian angel.
Wow.
And now I'm finding out every human being and probably animals have a guardian angel.
Yes.
That's unique to our soul journey. So that angel's with us the whole soul journey time. Is that correct?
From the moment that you're born to the moment that you pass, then a transition angel takes over. At least that's my belief system. I feel that way.
So
I don't necessarily know the name of my guardian angel, and I also feel like we have a legion of them, not just one.
Ooh, I feel that.
So vibrationally, I feel like not only do I have my guardian angel, but all the angels, all the saints, all the, and then when we have that vibe around us, it helps us with our life in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, well, it certainly helps. The more I become aware of that kind of celestial experience,
Yeah.
it 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 helps me to know that either I'm on the right path, or I'm not alone when I'm going through stuff, or
Big.
or I or I have access to higher wisdom that you can't find in a book. Do you know?
So
Yeah.
true. You got that right. That's well put.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's really why we're all here too, is to develop our conscious awareness, our consciousness,
Mhm.
to be aware of all the wow, I was going to say extraterrestrial, and yeah, maybe that too, but the
Oh, that's interesting that that came in.
yeah, all the essential celestial. These are, Margaret Ann, I find that trying to find a word to describe something that's so vast is near impossible.
It's true. It's true. And it's interesting that you got extraterrestrial. Now, I didn't put it in my book. In fact, I had a little blurb about it a little bit. And then my publisher was like, meh, maybe not. Because you're not going to go into depth on that. So let's take it out. But there is a lot of indication that potentially it could be considered from out of this world, which is extraterrestrial, especially the way some of them came in on chariots, on fire. And I was like, what kind of vehicle is that? Even the Merkaba, however you want to say it, that in itself is an instrument for travel. So yeah, it's a vehicle. It's just interesting. I'm not saying it's the way it works, but it's something to ponder on or contemplate.
Yes, it is interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because it does make it, um, I mean, if you think of it as an angel just flying with wings, that it's for some people that's easier to accept than
Yes.
an extraterrestrial in a vehicle,
It's true. And I see them as beings of light, which a lot of people, including myself, I enjoy seeing a beautiful being with wings and a halo and all that. But in reality, they don't look human at all. If we were to see them, my perception is that they're rays of light, like Archangel Michael travels on a blue ray and Raphael is on a green ray, and I don't know every color well, I do in a way because I tapped into that when I wrote the book, but I don't have it all memorized just because I wrote the book.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how and I'm teaching this to my students and clients and some people have a hard time with the concept of working with light or array, and then others just download this beautiful feeling of like I have a client who works with the pink ray a lot, and she's like, "Oh, and then I just worked with that pink ray, and it just changed everything in my life." I'm like, "You think good? You keep working that pink ray, however it shows up for you. It. There is no one way to. There is no one way, everybody, to meet your angels, your guides, um, the archangels. There isn't one way to do it. But if working with a color, like Margaret suggests in her book, or utilizing a crystal helps you to then have the experience of being involved with a higher being, then do it. And if it's feeling a ray of light coming in or surrounding you, like you were talking about your legions, I saw that as the minute you said that, Margaret, and I saw this like color just enveloping you,
Good. I love
like
that.
like a beautiful cloak. So there isn't one way to access these, but it is so important, as I poorly dis did not demonstrate. It's important to be open-minded, open-hearted to these kind of beings because they are here completely to help us, solely
For us.
yeah.
And there are messengers to the divine, to God, goddess, creator, whatever we want to call that higher vibration. Why not have an intermediary? Because that's what they are, intermediaries.
Right, right. And
They
that's
are meant to wait on us, so to speak.
yeah. I have to think about intermediary, Margaret Ann, because I mean, now that makes sense to me. In my youth, that just didn't make sense to me. Well, I do, and I have always believed that there's a direct beam to God or source or
I
to
do too. I
intelligence.
do.
So, and intermediaries are also necessary, because sometimes going direct is either you're blocked, or it's scary, or you're angry. So I don't want to talk to that person. I'm not going there. But to have intermediaries that basically support you, elevate you, hold your hand, that's
It's
good.
it's true. And an analogy also is like, we don't plug in our hair dryer into the power station. It's down to 120 watts.
That's
Even
good.
even 220 is too much.
That's really good. Yeah.
We have to be tuned up enough to do
Right.
that, It's like we have to be open on our consciousness, our soul, and all of it. And that's pretty powerful to go direct.
Yes, it is. It
Which is
is.
a lot of what happened with the saints. That's what makes them so, with all their visions, such mystical experiences were amazing.
And they were direct.
They were direct.
Yeah.
Most of them were direct with Jesus, though, I noticed.
Now, why is that? Because there's so many other masters that were on the planet, have walked the planet.
Maybe because these are Catholic saints.
Oh, these are Catholic saints.
These are Catholic saints. So, we could look at other saints and it's probably comes in a different way, like Krishna or Ganesha,
Yeah.
whoever it is that we're, yeah.
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 Interesting. Interesting. Well, Margaret Ann, thank you for putting it all together in one book. I appreciate that. And I'm going to do the magic book thing a lot with this one. So
What makes me happy.
yeah, I'm good. So it's The Essential Guide to Archangels and Saints. Again, there's the lovely cover. And Margaret has you have a website, right, Margaret Ann?
My personal website as an author is margaretannlembo.com. That's Lembo. And also, if you want to check out my store, I've been in business 36 years, thecrystalgarden.com.
Okay. So we're going to have all that in our show notes, you guys. So you don't have to worry that you missed it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming today, joining me. You bright and shiny lady. Thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that. I want to be bright and shiny. I'm glad it came across.
Well, you are, so I appreciate it. So is there one thing you would want to say to everyone about archangels?
Generally, I would like to always say that to remember, I don't know if it's about just archangels, it's just about to remember that we are love, and all that is attracted to us and all that surrounds us is love. And as long as we remember that we are love, we will be happy all the days of our lives.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to end with, and so it is. Namaste. Well, that wraps up our empowering chat for the day. I hope you enjoyed it and found it inspired you to be more empowered. If you want to find out more about me, go to susanburrell.com, my website, and you can see what we're up to. I am teaching classes again, so there's a calendar of that, and you can register. You can check out my book, Live an Empowered Life, a 30-day journey with the companion inspiration cards, or you can access my guided meditations that go through Insight Timer. We got a bunch of stuff on the website. Check it out. And until then, namaste.